Now let's start from the beginning, right? Something that I'm seeing is that you're lacking a little bit of planning, because this wasn't necessarily a brilliant tactical continuation or something like that. It was just the accumulation of little and little things that added up to something really major. So e4, c5, right? Knight f3, d6, bishop c4. I guess it's playable, but it's probably not the best continuation. But all right, e6. Castle, knight c6, and here d4. You were thinking that d4 or d3, what to do, right? I think d4 is the move here. D3 could be the move if you have your pawn on f4, I believe. Like, for example, there are some close Sicilians where you play with d3, f4, the bishop on c4, and then you just try to push f5 in the future and generate a lot of trouble. That's a case of close Sicilians when you play simply d3, knight c3, but nonetheless the knight doesn't go to f3 till the pawn on f2 has already gone to f4. That being said, I do believe that the best move should be d4 or just simply knight c3, but it's just the same idea. So d4, pawn takes, knight takes, right? And here we're into a more or less equal position. There is no really crazy things happening right now. Knight f6 is just generating a little bit of pressure on your pawn on e4. Nonetheless, something that you have to start to do from this position and even before that is to generate a long-term plan, And for you to do that, you should evaluate. And this is something that I find quite important. So the first thing that you have to do is evaluate the position and see what your problem is, what my problem is as the black pieces, and try to decrease your problems and increase mine, right? So in this position here, you sit down, you say, well, what's my problem? You go like, my king is safe, my rook on f1 is probably coming to e1, my knight on b1 is probably coming to c3, it is not developed yet, so that's a problem. My bishop on c1 is not developed yet. Also, my bishop on c4 might be attacked at certain positions with moves like d5. Also, maybe my queen is not in the best square on d1. Maybe you'd like to play f4 at certain positions, could be an interesting idea. And, well, your basic problems are to bring your bishop and your knight out, to bring your rook on a1 out, and also probably to improve the position of your bishop of c4, right? And at the same time, try to bring the rook on f1. That's your whole problem right now. Now we go to the black pieces and we try to figure out what's the problem with them. The problem with the black pieces is that my bishop is on f8, my king is still in the center, so I have to get out of there as soon as possible because the position is gonna get open soon probably. And also my bishop on c8 doesn't have a lot of squares to go to. My queen on d8 doesn't seem to be in the best square. I'd like to have this queen on c7 probably, but I have to be careful with moves like knight b5 in the future. Also, I'd probably like to have this bishop in this diagonal, but it might be hard to do that. So some variations that come to my mind might be bishop d7 to play bishop c6, and eventually just try to kind of fianchetto my bishop without even moving the pawn to b6, because I think that's generating a lot of abilities. I'd like to bring my rook to c8, probably my rook to d8, so that I can bring moves like d5 and break the center. That could be interesting. So those are like my general ideas right now, my evaluation, right? So what's the situation, the things that I want to do? Once we have seen what we want to do, we have to try to imagine our ideal scenario, right? Like, what is the ideal position for the white pieces here? What do you think it would be? Like the utopia.
Well, good question. So I like my rooks on the open files on e1 and d1. I'd like my my knights probably. Well, I'm expecting your king to come over to g2, or excuse me, g8. So since knights are more short-range pieces, I think it would be well placed around g5 and f3 or something. Okay. I'm not sure. My dark square bishop maybe on b2 or c3.
All right. If I were the white pieces, my utopian idea would be something like rook e1, my queen probably on d2, my bishop on e3, my knight on c3, or even this rook on f1 and this rook on e1, so I can push f4. Probably this knight would be going to some other square, maybe even b3. This bishop here, I try to improve the position of it, maybe with bishop b5. And that's like my general idea, my plan, right? That's what I want to accomplish. Now, what would it take for me to get there? What can I do to get there, right? And so we have to see the idea of the black pieces, the plan of the black pieces. What's the ideal situation of the black pieces here?
So I think you're gonna, like you mentioned, you'll want your bishop eyeing the long diagonal, your white bishop, light square bishop, and then probably want to get castled soon. So, but I don't think your dark square bishop is ideal on e7, but it may end up there so that you can castle probably your queen on, I'm not sure, b6.
Okay. Here in this position with the black pieces, my plan was, or my idea was, my general utopian idea, if you will, is to play bishop e7, to castle, to bring my bishop somewhere into this diagonal, to play rook c8, to play a6, to play probably queen c7 or queen a5, and then to try to fight for the center with a move like d5, right? That's important for me. See also how I cannot play e5 in this position. You know why?
If you play e5, then I mean, I suppose I could sacrifice, but I don't see the fruit exactly.
I don't think it's so much about sacrificing. I think it's more like about a positional problem. The first problem that I have is that I get a backward pawn, and also that you have a really strong square to go to with your knight on b1, for example. So that's something terribly important for us to see here, how I cannot simply play e5 to try to fight for the center, because I have to be really careful with the position and not to lead leave any positional weaknesses into my situation, so that you have a really easy plan. For example, if I do play e5, you can simply try to do something like this eventually and generate a lot of pressure here, and that could be really, really annoying. So that's a little point that I wanted to tell you here. So those are our plans, right? Now, what can you do to accomplish your plan, to solve your problems, and to try to increase my problems in the position?
Well, right now I could play rook e1 to defend my pawn, and also move it to a preferable square. Although I think what I played was knight c3.
Okay. Knight c3 is a perfectly playable move, right? I think it's alright. Right now we have a plan, right now we have an idea. Bishop e7, bishop e3. Perfect logical sense here. Castle, queen f3. And here things have started to look weird, you know? First things first. In this position we're accomplishing the ideal position. See how everything is going alright, right? In this position, everything seems to be harmonious with the things that I just told you before. With bishop e3, bringing my knight to c3, probably playing rook e1, probably playing queen d2, probably playing everything or something like this. That would be a really nice position to play. Everything seems to be in harmony. And suddenly you play queen f3. And this is a positional mistake, right? How come?
Let's see. So now I can't play f4.
Now you can't play f4. That means that you're not being flexible, right? Also, there is another problem. There is a fork, right, with knight e5. So if I play knight e5, then you move your queen backwards. Of course, you're not losing a piece, but you're losing a couple of tempi here, right?
Yeah.
Also, you're losing the pair of bishops. This bishop on c4 was really decent. Something that you usually play in these kind of positions with the white pieces is something like bishop b3, for example, to avoid any kind of exchange with the knight or something like that, so that you lose your pair of bishops. Bishop b3 is something common in these kind of positions, right? But queen f3 is allowing me to play knight e5, queen e2, knight takes, queen takes, and now your position looks a little bit messy in terms of a strategy. How come?
Well, e4 is weak, and my queen can be easily attacked, allowing you to develop with tempo.
Alright, that's one of the things. Also, you do not have the pair of bishops, the position is open, right? Also,
Right.
something important for us to see here, this bishop on e3 doesn't seem to do anything, right? It's like, what are you doing with this bishop? Do you have any objective? Where are you going with your pieces now? See how suddenly, out of just a little exchange, things are going, the things are flipping, right? Now the black pieces are getting the initiative. See how that wouldn't have happened if you play something like simply bishop b3, for example. The position is still a little bit equal, but nonetheless what's going to happen is that your plan is more congruent with the situation. You have the pair of bishops, you're generating pressure. Also, at the same time, you're keeping the options open to play f4. So see how all of these things are adding up for you to have a little advantage in terms of the strategy. Here, after 95, things are starting to collapse. And this is something which may seem menial, but if you want to improve at the level that you are now, these are things that you have to see, right? Because you're hitting 1900s, right? So probably you're not, yeah?
Only one time.
Oh yeah, but you're hitting them, right? And once you're hitting them, it takes a while to get better, but nonetheless, at this level, you have to start to comprehend strategic nuances and strategic contrasts and how things work together. So in this position, see how after you play queen e2, things start to collapse in this sense. So I keep playing normal chess, see how I do not do anything crazy. I play bishop d7 and finish my development. Nonetheless, I do have a little advantage to the fact that I have the pair of bishops. Now what do I need to do? I need to open the position, I need to bring my pieces out, and eventually try to impose, try to force you into a worse position due to the fact that I have more mobility, right? So with the white pieces, you have to be really careful now. I wasn't thinking of playing a6 and bishop b5 though. I don't think that's the way I wanted to proceed. I didn't think that made a lot of sense. What I wanted to do was to play a6, b5 to get a little bit more of a space, and probably rook c8, so that I am generating pressure on c2 and c3, and things are going a little bit better for me, right? Also, I want to play maneuvers like knight g4 to play knight e5. How come? Because if I do that, then my knight will have a really decent square to go to, maybe even to c4, and this is something typical of this kind of positions of Sicilians. Maybe you have seen that before, right? So in this position, things are starting to look dark, right? I like the fact that you're always saying, this is alright, this is alright, this is nice, but this is not nice. You have to be careful, right? So that's something that I wanted to tell you. It is alright to be positive, but nonetheless, you cannot delude yourself into positiveness, if that makes sense. Like, you cannot simply get any single move or all the moves that come like, oh, it's alright. You have to be careful, right? So that you can act upon the position and try to figure out a way to get out of the problems that you have, if that makes sense. So rook a1 makes perfect logical sense. I believe that's a move that makes sense. a6, and now here, well, maybe this is a point where you embrace the fact that, well, the position is not going so nice. Maybe you have to simply go back and try to trade some pieces or try to force f4 in the future to win a little bit of space, and then eventually try to get into an equal position and an equal endgame, and then try to force there and try to wait for a mistake of the other guy to get some advantage, right? But in this position, a4 was a move that I didn't like, because first of all, you're allowing me to play knight g4. See how this is not a move which is winning a piece or anything, but it's still getting more advantage in terms of the strategy. How come?
Because, well, it threatens my bishop and it puts your knight in a dangerous spot.
Exactly. I'm basically taking your bishop. You move your bishop away, you're losing a tempo. I'm bringing my queen out. That means that I am going to have a little bit more of activity. I'm bringing my rook out. I'm generating pressure on your pieces. Things are getting dangerous here. So a4, rook here, and queen d3. And I go like, why queen d3? What are you doing with queen d3? You go like, yeah, I want to defend my pawn on e4. But it's not the pawn on e4 which needs to be protected right now, probably. I think that maybe queen e2 is a little bit better. And even queen b3 might be a little bit better. Because the reason behind this queen b3 move is that probably you're generating pressure on b7, and at least you're forcing me to react to your moves, and you're not leaving me with moves like queen a5, which are way more active and generating so much pressure on a4, right?
Right.
So that could be an option here. Nonetheless, here it is time for us to reconsider what's our ideal situation. What do you think is the ideal situation with the white pieces now?
Okay. So now Well, I suppose f4 would contribute, so then I could at least have a little bit of
All right.
there. Obviously, I need to protect the queen. I see quite clearly now that e2 would be better since it guards against knight g4.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, my dark squared bishop is pretty weak. I suppose I could try to reposition it to like maybe b2 or just some line on this diagonal.
I think that
Um,
maybe the bishop on e3 is alright there, but with a move like f3. This is a move that you maybe have seen before in Sicilians, with a bishop on e3. Like, the idea is that you're stopping me from getting into g4, and at the same time, you're defending your pawn on e4. At the same time, you're giving a square f2 to your bishop, and you can bring your rook out. It is not as crazy as going with f4, but nonetheless, it gives you a solid position. And this might be one of the cases where you need a solid position, right? So,
right.
that could be nice. f3, I think in this position maybe f3 in the future, maybe rook e1 or something like that, bishop f2 as a prophylactic measure, try to improve the position of your knights eventually, and wait for the best. Or maybe even rook d2, rook d1. There are certain positions where you cannot do anything crazy and you have to simply try to improve the position of your pieces. So this is one of them. So queen d3, didn't like queen d3, it's allowing me to go to g4, and in this position I am also improving the position of my pieces. See how I am not doing anything crazy. Like,
No,
I haven't done anything crazy. But you, at the same time, didn't do anything crazy yet, just the little mistake of the bishop on c4, right? And this a4, which seems a little bit dubious. But see how it is generating unbalances, and I can try to get advantage of them. So, in this position, one more time, try to stop knight e4. But you're not seeing that one. This is subtle, right? It's like not so obvious. Knight e4, why do you play knight e4? Because I want your bishop or I want to get there.
yeah.
So that's interesting. Also, at the same time, I'm generating pressure here. I don't think you have to go with rook a1. I think that's kind of extreme because after rook a1, you're losing not only a tempo, but also your rook goes out of the center, which is the position where you want your rook to be. So in this position, it is not so dangerous to take here for you because let's imagine that I take on a4. Let's say something silly like, I don't know, h4. Let's imagine that I take here, right? Then you simply have rook a1 now.
Ah, yeah. I didn't see it.
And if b5, for example, to defend, then b3 is coming. Or something like that. Well, maybe not b3 right now because the knight's falling, but maybe bishop d2 as an intermezzo, and then b3 is coming, and I'm losing a piece. So I didn't think that was what I wanted to play. So the reason why I play queen a5 is because I want to bring my queen into this kind of squares, and also I'm giving more mobility to my position. I'm playing, see how I'm just getting into the dream position, right?
Yeah.
It's just simple, it's just logical, it's just simplifying things, playing rook d8, then eventually I play d5, and then I'll go for a normal decent game, right? Probably bishop c6 in the future, try to get rid of your knights, and etc, etc, etc. Just normal, and see how everything is just alright. And it's beautiful because it is just simply good strategic game. So knight d4, rook a1, not good at strategic game, right? See how the tactics are good for you in this position, to good enough for you in this position as to stop me from taking on a4. So I wouldn't take there. Rook a1, now your pieces are going backwards, then you're setting the board one more time. It doesn't make any sense to move your rook to a1 after you move it to d1, right?
Right.
Losing some more tempi. Knight d4, losing more tempi. Bishop d2, queen h5, generating pressures on h2, giving you a mate. Also, in this position, I'm forcing you to react. My pieces are all going out. Now, my pieces seem to be a little bit more active than yours. My rook on c8, my knight on g4. My bishop has certain diagonals that can go to. This bishop might have bishop c6 eventually. Things are getting really hard, right? So h3, I think, well, h3 makes sense because otherwise there is a mate. I didn't like moves like queen g3. Maybe knight f3 is the other option that you have. And even then, I just simply can play something like rook here. And see how I'm just making your pieces go backwards, right? And all my pieces are going upwards. Yours are going backwards. Eventually, this should add up to something that I can materialize. So, h3, knight e5. Queen g3. Queen e2 one more time seems to be the logical move. How come?
Well, because your queen is a big threat right now, so if I can take it off the board, that would be better.
Not only that, but also see how as you move your pieces backwards, for example, rook d1, a1, and bishop d2, and now you're down on tempi, right? And now you're down on space. Because see how I do control more space than you do right now, and my pieces have more chances to come to really dangerous positions, right? Whoops. So, as not only this queen is attacking, but also you have less space, you want to decrease the pressure, and as you have less tempi, you want to decrease the pressure. Because how do we materialize these kind of advantages where we have tempi and space? Tactics.
Well, okay.
You know, the whole idea of playing a strategically proper chess is to solve the position through tactics, right? Get advantages strategically and then solve them through tactics. So the less pieces that are on the board, the less chances there are for me to have tactical repercussions on your position.
Right.
So queen e2, queen takes e2, knight takes e2, and the position is playable, you know?
Yeah.
It's not the best position ever. You still have to be concerned with moves like knight c4 and weird things like that. But it's not the end of the world. So,
right.
In this position, see how one more time queen g3, a lack of evaluation. Why? Because you do not want to preserve queens on the board. You want to trade them.
Yeah.
So evaluate one more time. What do I want to do? Would I like to trade pieces? This is also something that you can include into your planning process. Like, is in my ideal situation, or is in my best interest to trade a piece for some other piece? Can I do that? Can I maneuver to do that? For example, if I wanted to trade this knight for this one, can I do that eventually? Right? Those are things that we can see in these kind of situations, and of course, things that you can improve if you play longer time controls, and that so that you get awareness of what's happening. That's nice. So, bishop h4. How come? Because your queen is not well situated. Now you're going to have to move it, and if you go to anywhere, this seems really sad. Because now as you come here, knight c4 is coming. If you go to e1, then everything is coming. Like the pawn on b2 is coming, is falling. The knight is taking the bishop. Your knights are all unharmonious. Your queen is stopping your pieces from being connected. Your rook is on a1 doing nothing. Your rook is on f1 doing nothing. My pieces are all being active now. It doesn't seem nice, right? See how the advantage is accumulating now. Queen f4, same idea now. Knight c4, b3, and I go like, what? Why would you play b3, right? This is something that was weird for me. Maybe bishop c1 is a move now, I think. And even that's sad, because moves like e5 are coming. Any kind of moves are coming. It's just too dangerous. So, but b3, you're not seeing that e5 is coming, and that's also maybe a lack of tactics and a lack of evaluation as well, because if you evaluate everything, you'll see that the pawn might come to e5, and that means that you're losing a piece, right?
Right.
So not so good. In this position here, now you're paying the consequences of all the moves that you did before, like for example rook a1, queen f3, the other weird things like bishop, like not defending the square g4, also all of these things. Now you're paying them. See how it's not pure tactics and crazy things, it's just adding up. And now
that makes sense.
Knight c4, knight and here e5, right? Any move is just winning. I think just simply knight takes e2 is winning, even in this position after knight takes, queen takes, for example. I think you're bad in this position because bishop f6 is coming, for example, and this is just too annoying. So see how even if you do not lose material, the position is not looking alright. So b3 also is leaving this knight unprotected. This knight is unprotected. This bishop is gonna be unprotected. Everybody's just falling, and now this is just, of course, simplification, and eventually everything falls. And in this position, it is interesting that I can simply leave the rook here without you taking it, because e3 is coming, and that's just too much. So bishop d8, bishop b6, you cannot take. And now this is a Suksun. See how all my pieces and all my intentions were simply to restrain your position, and I accomplish it. That's what I wanted to do, right? So what can you take out of this game? What's the thing that you can take out of this particular game, and what you should try to implement in your next or your future games?
Yeah, I think for me, well, most of my evaluation was on material. I was just thinking, oh, this is okay because I'm trading a rook for a bishop, and then I'm not going to be down any material. But I wasn't. Well, obviously, I wasted probably 6 or 7 tempi.
Exactly.
That's something that I can certainly improve on. And I think another weakness of mine at the moment is that I don't know. I'm not familiar with different structures by name and theme, and so when you say like, oh, in a Sicilian we normally would play this move or this move, those things are important to me at the moment.
All right. So also something else that you have to consider: dynamic value against static value, right?
Yeah.
You know what that means, right?
Yeah. So if it so how the value of a bishop changes in an open position or a knight changes in a closed position and that sort of thing.
Exactly, those kind of things, right? How the value of a piece changes as it is relative to the position that you're playing, right? So they're really important all the time to consider. If you want to trade a piece, why? Do not just simply trade a piece. You do not want to trade a piece, don't do that. Why? Do you have more value? Do you have less value? What do you have on the position? Is a rook better than a knight in this position, for example? Is a knight better than a rook in this one? That's something important that we have to consider all the time. How to preserve the pieces that we want to preserve, and how to keep the other guy with the pieces that do not work for him, right?
Right.
They're really important for you to materialize the advantages that you have. Evaluate constantly. Do not just throw plans because. Do not jump into conclusions. For example, when you go to college and you have methodology, you'll see that you cannot just simply jump into conclusions. You have to follow the scientific method and whatever, right? How come?
Yeah.
Because jumping into conclusions directly does not take into consideration the facts that are happening in reality, right?
Right.
So it is important for us to consider all the factors of the board before we generate a plan. Generate a plan, a clear one, that's gonna lead you to have your pieces working on harmony, right? How come? Because you do not have a plan, then suddenly you wake up and your pieces are doing nothing. Why? Because you do not have an objective. Important. Terribly important. So those, I believe, are the things that you can take out of this game, for example.